share ideas to help families tackle major issues. I'm your host, Regina DeMeo, and with me today is Sonia Smith-Valentine. Thank you so much for being here, Sonia.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been doing this for over a decade, helping people with credit issues, identity theft, and helping them figure out their budgets. It's like a lot to deal with.
Yes, it is, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
That's awesome. So I have a burning question. When we were talking, I was wondering about identity theft, and I don't know, in my mind it was something that people maybe hacked into your computer and got your information, but you've said something to me that has stuck with me since we spoke, and that is that most of these identity thefts actually occur from relatives.
Yeah, family and friends. More often than not, it's somebody you know. Although there's the typical, yes, somebody hacked into a company computer and stole a database of information, but a lot of times it's somebody you know. It's the grandchild steals the grandparents' information. You have a friend that comes over and brings some other friends, and somebody wanders off, to the bathroom and picks up some extra information about you. Yeah, it happens pretty frequently.
So how do you protect yourself from a relative stealing your identity? I mean, how's that possible? I don't know. Do you have any tips for people?
Get something as simple as a safe.
Right.
And put your, any critical information. If you know you're going to have a bunch of people over, just, say, oh, let me, put my wallet, and, oh, we have our passport, let me stick that in the safe. Stuff that you just wouldn't want somebody to walk away with. So you don't have to go as far as I do, but a safe, is some way that you can protect yourself against these problems.
Or I guess like in law firms, we have those filing cabinets that you can lock. You
Exactly.
Could get a filing cabinet with the lock
Exactly.
to the cabinet. Okay.
Exactly.
But what happens if, you did not have that situation and now the damage has already been done? How do people normally find out that their identity has been stolen?
Usually the person has gone to do something. They've gone to apply for a car loan, or they went to apply for a mortgage, and all of a sudden the loan officer says, oh, we can't, your score's too low. And you're going, what do you mean? I pay my bills. And then they show you your report to go, well, here are these collection accounts where it shows that you didn't pay for this credit card. That's usually what happens, is something happens in the process of you going to apply for credit. Every now and then also people find out because they'll start getting maybe collection letters in the mail that says, hey, we're trying to collect on this debt, and you're going, I don't even know what this debt is. So those are usually the most common ways that a person finds out they've been a victim of identity theft.
Okay. And then what should they do once they realize that's happened?
Well, instantly, the first thing you need to do is go pull your credit report. And I always say, don't just pull it from one credit bureau. Pull it from all three.
Okay.
Excuse me. Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They don't always have the same information. So if you only pull one, you might miss other accounts that are on the others.
Okay.
But you need to get the credit report first. You need to check and make sure that every account listed is yours. So if you see something on there that you go, I don't have a Discover card. What's this Discover account? That lets you know, okay, these are the accounts that I need to start targeting.
Okay.
To say, this isn't mine. The other thing you should do is file a police report. Although the police aren't usually going to do any investigation, most creditors want you to file a police report and give them a police report number. So I always say go file the police report first, so that by the time you start talking to the credit card companies or car loan or whatever kind of accounts have showed up that are fraudulent, you can say, I filed the police report. Here's the police report information.
Okay.
And then start contacting the companies. I'm going to say something that most people are going to go, oh, I don't want to do that. But once you call them, you need to also follow it up with a letter to that company.
Right.
And say, I called on such date to inform you that this is not my account and I'm a victim of identity theft. Here's the police report information, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, a lot of times the customer service folks at some of the companies don't always do the things that they're supposed to do to make sure the accounts get closed properly. So you want to send that letter in to protect yourself, to be able to prove, hey, I did call it, I did let you know it wasn't my account, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think you and I are trained as lawyers, to document everything. But yes,
Exactly.
For a lot of people, it's like, really, the phone call is not enough, and it's just
Not. Right.
So what happens if, are they just going to take somebody's word for it, or what happens if they don't believe you? Like, other than the police report and this letter saying this isn't my debt, what else might happen?
Most of the companies probably will either send you what they call an affidavit. They have their own internal form, Or sometimes they'll ask you to fill out, the FTC has an identity theft affidavit, where you fill out all this information about, if you think you know who did it or didn't. If you don't know, the police report information, the accounts that, were fraudulently opened, personal information about you, like your name, date of birth, stuff like that. They often will use the information on the affidavit to compare maybe to where the charges happened. So, for instance, if they're looking at your information showing you live here in Maryland, but they can see all the charges happened in Texas, they're going to go, good chance that it wasn't you.
Right.
And often they want you to sign these affidavits because part of the affidavits will say that you will assist them in prosecution. But very, 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 very rarely do they go after someone for prosecution. The number would have to be high enough that it's worth their while. Most people, the credit card might have been stolen and used for, $5,000. Most companies aren't going to spend the time to do the prosecution on $5,000. But they put it in there, they put it into the affidavit as a way of trying to weed out those who may be lying about whether or not they're victims.
Right.
But, so usually it's the police report, it's the letter, it's the affidavit. They may ask for some other information, like a copy of your ID, so they can see your signature and compare it
to what's on file.
Right, to what's on file, those kinds of things. Or, a copy of your information to show your birth date. Like, for instance, I was telling you a story earlier about the kid whose parent used his information, so he can prove I was a child at the time. That's another way that they'll go, okay, it wasn't you, you were 14, so clearly you couldn't have been the person who did it because your ID shows you would have been 14.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that may come up in terms of the investigation about whether or not you're responsible for the charges.
Okay. And then let's say you're having an issue with the credit bureau and they're refusing to take this information out. What can a consumer do to fix their credit report?
There are several things. Number one, most people don't realize the credit bureaus are going to take the word of the creditor over you when it comes to this fight. So although you send into the credit bureau the letter that you should to say I'm disputing this information on my credit report, the credit bureau is going to go contact the creditor to say, we received this dispute, we need you to investigate, let us know what you want us to do. So I tell people there are several things that you can do if you've got to kind of get into a fight, as I call it. Number one, if you're contacting a company and you're kind of having some difficulty with customer service, because sometimes customer service isn't equipped to deal with an identity theft issue appropriately, I always say, take a few minutes and hop on Google. Do a search for the headquarters address of the company and send a letter to the office of the president. Frequently when I've done that or had my clients do that, they now get somebody in higher level management who gets back in touch with them. And now you've got somebody who's got some authority to do something and who can actually work with you.
Okay.
So that's usually a helpful thing to do. Another thing that's out there that a lot of people don't know exist is, unlike the FTC, which takes complaints and only acts if they get a large number of complaints about a company, most of these credit card companies are owned by banks. And these banks have what we call primary regulators. There is a governmental agency that regulates every type of bank, whether you're a state bank, a national bank, whatever it is. The way to find out who the regulator is they've set up a website, which is real easy for people to use. It's called helpwithmybank.gov.
Okay, that's easy.
Right. And literally you can go on there and look for your bank, and they will tell you who the regulator is and how to file a complaint either online or by mail to say, here's my problem I'm having with the bank. And the regulator will actually get involved and contact the bank to say, hey, there's a problem here. What's going on? We need a response. We need you to... And often, because the regulator has knocked on their door, the bank now will really do the job that they should have done before to try to resolve your identity theft issue.
Okay.
So if all else fails, and I hate to say that, but if all else fails, because sometimes it does,
right,
you actually have rights under credit reporting laws, which say if you've notified the credit bureau, if you've notified the creditor and said, this is not my account, please take this off, it's incorrect, and they don't, and you've suffered harm, like let's say you've lost out on a loan, you lost out on a job, your interest rate was increased, your credit line was decreased, and emotional harm, you can sue. You have the right to sue the credit bureaus and the creditor that's doing this negative information on your report that's false. And if you win, in addition to whatever money you may get, you also have the right to ask for your attorney's fees and cost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, you could come out not having to come out of your pocket for anything.
So do you do some of these lawsuits?
Yes. Yes, I have over the last 10 years.
Okay. Is it complicated?
For the attorney, yes. For the consumer, no.
No. Okay.
The consumer usually doesn't have to do a lot during the lawsuit other than maybe, come to a deposition, something like that.
Okay.
Because a lot of the work was done before the lawsuit. The letters and the communication all happened beforehand. So a lot of that is the evidence that kind of comes into the case.
How long do these cases drag out?
They can vary. I've had some that have settled in 3 months, and I've had some that have gone as long as a year and a half.
Wow.
So it can, it depends upon who's on the other side. The credit bureaus are smart. They've been doing this a long time. So they're quicker to settle and resolve a case and move on. Sometimes, depending upon the creditor that might be involved in a case, they can drag it out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's something that I have to point out, like from my own experience, because I want to see if you've had the same thing. But I have people in a divorce situation where they assume that because the credit card is only in one person's name, it's like, oh, that's not my problem. But what they don't realize is that in divorce court, we're going to look at all the debt that was accumulated, and it doesn't matter whose name it's in. And the divorce court actually has the ability to allocate a certain portion and say, well, husband, it's your credit card, so you're primarily responsible, but wife, you benefited from some of those charges, so you have to pay a portion. And then what, have you seen it where, like, on the flip side, much later, husband assumes that wife has paid the portion she's supposed to, and it turns out she hasn't? Do you see that?
Yes. I feel bad because I'll have somebody who comes in and will bring in the divorce decree and say, the judge said she had to pay, she didn't, and now my credit report is all screwed up because it's showing 30, 60, 90 days late. I want her to pay and I want it fixed. And I go, well, first of all, you're not getting your credit report fixed.
Right.
I hate to tell you, but the divorce decree does not alter the contract between you and the credit card company.
Right.
So if husband was the person whose credit card it was, credit card company is reporting accurately. It is 30, 60, 90 days late. You didn't pay. And what I always, advise couples when they're divorcing is you need to be prepared that if that other person for some reason isn't paying, that you need to pay it.
Right.
To save your credit rating. This is separate than all the other issues.
Right.
But you need to be prepared to pay it. You can go sue your ex-spouse for the money back. But as far as that credit report is concerned, the credit card company is reporting correctly.
Yeah.
They didn't get the money. It was due. You were liable. Now, the other person may be liable to you, but you're still liable to the credit card company.
That's great information. We're going to take a little short break, and then we'll be right back.
I'm home.
Over 1 million Americans at risk of foreclosure have been helped by Making Home Affordable. Find out now what your options
I'm
are.
home where I belong.
Welcome back to Making It Last, where we're sharing ideas about keeping your credit under control. And with me today is Sonia Smith-Valentine. Thanks so much for being here, Sonia.
I'm having a great time.
So we were talking about reminiscing a little bit about college, right? And I remember when I was in college and they had these promotions like open up a credit card and you get 2 free round-trip tickets. And you were telling me that that's not allowed anymore. Am I right?
Yeah. With all the reform that came in because of the recession and all the problems that came in, there were all these changes that were put in about credit cards and marketing. And so one of the things that got put in is that the credit card companies can't go on the campuses anymore with those tables where they had all these free giveaways to entice the kids to come and sign up for credit cards. So that one is no longer there. So that's why you don't see all those tables anymore on the campuses with all here's the free T-shirts and the free Frisbees and the free cups and you sign up for this credit card. Yeah, that was one of the ones that got put in place, and I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we were also talking about the fact that when you go off to college, a lot of times families haven't really spoken to their kids at all about the finances at all. It's somehow seen as like a taboo thing to do. And then these kids go off, and it's like, where on earth do you learn to balance your budget? Where do you learn about credit cards? And you said like fees are 21% to 29% these days.
Yeah, if you don't have stellar credit, you can end up with a pretty high interest rate, and that's a problem because families don't talk about money around the dining room table.
Right.
As they say, they don't teach their kids how to save, what credit cards are. When we were growing up, we saw physical money.
Right.
So we knew what that was to have to pay for stuff. Now everybody uses a debit or credit card, so the kid only sees you swipe and assumes that little card is the money. They don't understand, like, oh, I have to actually pay for that credit card bill when it comes in. They think you've paid because you've swiped. And parents need to sit down with their kids and say, no. This little piece of plastic here, this credit card, is just an intermediary. I still have to pay the bill. Let me show you. And explain to kids about how they can get into trouble and that they got to be careful with using credit. Make them open up bank accounts, take them to the bank, show them how to save and how to budget, and make them sit with you when you're doing bills. Not that they need to know all the numbers, but that there's this process that you have to go through to make sure you're paying your bills and taking care of your credit. Because we don't want to send them off into the world ill-equipped. We try to teach them how to wash their clothes or how to cook,
right.
all those other things. So why aren't you also teaching them how to take care of their money?
No, I think it makes perfect sense, but I unfortunately, in a lot of divorces, I get to see information that not many people do, right? And people with these really pretty homes and these really flashy cars, they're professionals, and meanwhile, their finances are a complete disaster. It turns out the home is actually underwater. Mm-hmm. It turns out that car is actually a lease, and they're barely making their payments, and their credit cards are out of control. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm. I have this thing that I saw the other day, and I thought it was so great. It said, stop trying to act rich, you're going to go broke. Instead, act your wage. And I thought, that is such a smart thing to say. We have gotten into this place where we live up and beyond what we're making all the time. And every time we get a raise, we then live to that new number.
Right.
If you are living at, and I'm just going to use a number, if you're living at $50,000 and you get a raise to $60,000, don't start living to $60,000. You need to use some of that raise to pay down your debt, to put some savings away, to put retirement away or a college fund. But people instead will be like, oh, now I'm making 60. Great, I'm going to go out and lease a new car. I earned it. I deserve it. And I go, people need to realize true rich folks, like regular millionaires, they live regular lives.
Yeah.
They don't buy $500,000 homes, $1 million homes. The studies that have been done on millionaires, they buy $350,000 homes at the most. They drive cars for 10 years. Mm-hmm. They get haircuts at the local barbershop for $6, $10, whatever dollars. They don't live extravagant lives. People see all the actors in Hollywood and think that's what most people do, or the musicians and stuff. Most true millionaires live average lives. And I keep saying to folks, you don't have anything to prove to anybody.
Right.
You don't have to drive the brand new car and all of those things. I go, that person that is concerned about what I'm driving isn't paying the bills in my house. If they start paying bills in my house, then I need to be concerned with what you think. Right. But until then, I'm not concerned. And if we started to get back to that attitude of, I need to save, I need to wait until I have the money to go buy a brand new TV, not put it on credit, we would be in a much better place.
Oh, I totally agree. So you have these workshops, I understand, that actually, for those that did not have those skills growing up and are now facing some issues, you have workshops that actually teach them to be more financially responsible, am I right?
Yes. I have a variation of live workshops. I have some that are webinars, so that, somebody who's across the country could log on and watch a webinar. Okay. Or sometimes I'll put on a teleseminar where you can call into the conference call and listen. And depending upon what the topics are, sometimes it's a one-time thing, or sometimes it'll be a series. So where the webinar might be every Tuesday night for 4 weeks because I'm talking about a particular topic.
Okay.
Because I began to realize when I started doing a lot of speaking and coaching and workshops that the education most of us get, especially if you have like a corporate job, is they have somebody come in and talk about a 401k and that you should sign up.
Right.
But most people are going, I need to know how I live daily. I don't even care yet about the 401k because I don't have the money to put away. Tell me how I can find room in my budget. Tell me how I can make my credit report better. How do I deal with this debt? I'm not sure what I should do about college, paying for it. They want some basic information because they're, like you said, not getting it, not talked about at home, not talking about it at school. So I started doing, as much as I could in terms of trainings and workshops and seminars and webinars so that folks could get at least some basics so they know where to start.
Yeah, and are there guidelines, like a third of your income should go towards housing, but no more than that? I mean,
right. And most people don't realize when you earn a salary, let's say, a third of your salary is going to taxes.
Yeah.
So when you start with your gross number at, whatever that number is, lump off a third right away because that's going to taxes. So that now you know what number you're really bringing home.
Right. If you're making 90, 30 is going to go to the IRS. So you really have 60 to work with.
Right. And people need to start, and then from the 60, okay, now only this portion should be, going to housing, and this portion should be going to debt. And they don't realize that that's kind of what they have to look at. They think, I got 90. Great, right. I'm going to go. And it's like, no, you don't have 90.
Right.
The first 3 months of the year, you're really working for your taxes.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, what are the common pitfalls that you see?
I think some of the things that I see are, like you said, people get housing that's way above what they could really afford.
Yeah.
That's one of the big ones. It's, ooh, that house is so gorgeous. And most folks who are coming from renting an apartment to buying a house don't understand there's not the maintenance guy that you can just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, dishwasher's broken, come fix it.
Right.
There are costs beyond just the mortgage and interest that you pay to maintain a house.
Yeah.
There are taxes, there are upkeep. What happens when the heating unit stops working? You've got to have money to pay for it to be fixed.
Right.
And they get caught up because they thought the 30% is all covered by mortgage and interest, and they don't realize, no, that 30% has to include maintaining this house. The lawn has to get cut. You got to pay a water bill. There's so many other things that go into maintaining a home. So that's probably the biggest problem that I see. People moving into a home that they really can't afford. The next thing is probably cars. Mm-hmm. People are buying cars that are way beyond what they can afford.
Or they're leasing. The leasing drives me insane. I mean, who spends $1,000 a month on a lease? That's ridiculous. At the end of that lease term,
gotta give it
you
back.
have nothing to show for that.
Right.
So great, you drove that Jag for 3 years. Woohoo! Now you got nothing.
Right. Now you're going to be driving the Honda Civic because you got to give it back and you can't afford to get something that you can buy. But yeah, the leasing and buying cars beyond their means. I mean, it dawned upon me when I was growing up, most of the terms on a car loan were 3 years. Now you got car loans that are 5 and 6 years. And I went, are you kidding me? If you're paying for a car 5 or 6 years, that's not a car you can afford. If you've got to pay, spread out the payments that far, you need to be looking at a different car. But people are like, no, I want to drive the Mercedes. Really? Gas is already too expensive. You don't need the expensive car, too.
Right.
And then the third is obviously credit cards. Folks are just... Okay. They're forgetting there's a bill that comes at the end of the month that says, hey, you have to pay. And, oh, by the way, we're tacking on 21% interest. Stop. Just stop. Say today, you know what? I'm not going to charge another thing. If I don't have the money, then it's not something I need to go buy. I mean, there's emergencies. That's different. But, if you don't have the money, don't buy it. Just stop. And now just make the effort to pay down what you've already charged. Because that's just going to be one of those cycles that you'll never get out of if you don't stop at some point and go, no more charging.
Well, I'm sure you've seen, I've unfortunately seen that sometimes it's beyond repair. It's gotten so bad that now, well, especially in the divorce, they're selling the house, it's underwater, those lease cars are going back, and you're going to have to go find that used Honda Civic that you can actually work within your budget. And then the worst thing is these credit card bills are so out of control, sometimes they both have to file for bankruptcy.
Yes. But I want to say this because I think sometimes people apply the wrong stigma to bankruptcy.
Okay.
And it's funny because I get so many people who come to me and go, I don't want to file because I want to be able to get a job. I want to be able to, get a government position. So, they have the wrong view of it, actually. I've been doing this so long that I've had many conversations with folks who do the clearance issue because, being in this area, there are a lot of folks who have either government jobs or contract jobs, and they have security clearances. The bankruptcy will not prevent you from getting the clearance. It's the debt that prevents you from getting the clearance.
Are you serious?
Yes. The issue with the security clearance is, are you liable to be bribed? Will somebody come in and go, here's $100,000, get us some state secrets? Well, if you're swimming in debt, you're going to be vulnerable to that $100,000 pile sitting in front of you, and you're going, that could pay off a lot of my bills. Wow. If you filed for bankruptcy and eliminated the debt, you're no longer a security risk because there's no debt to bribe you with.
Right, I didn't even think of that.
Right. So I'm constantly explaining to folks, like, no, you can still get a job. You can still get an apartment. If you've got really bad credit, an apartment isn't looking to put you in an apartment anyway, because they're going, she's not paying her other bills, she's not going to pay her rent.
Right.
You have a greater chance of moving forward if it's that bad by filing for the bankruptcy. Most people really rebound in about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can start getting credit again, you can start getting a car again. Like, it doesn't last, like, yes, it's on your credit report for 7 years, but in terms of, like, being able to move forward and do stuff again, usually within 2 years.
Okay. So I really think that's a good message that, you know, some people are just overwhelmed with this, but they're fearful of this stigma.
Yeah.
And you're saying...
It's really not. And actually, it's funny, if there's a time to file, it's now. So many people have filed because of this recession that you've got people of all careers, all, you know, areas, from the guy who's, you know, picking up our garbage to the judge sitting on the bench. They're all filing for bankruptcy. And it's funny because when I talk to the people in, you know, in banks and so on and so forth, and I go, so what's the view when you see a bankruptcy? And they're like, yeah, the recession. They go, they don't even look at it like something's wrong. It's not like, oh my God, you're a horrible person. It's like, yeah, it's the recession.
Yeah, which, by the way, they cause. I mean,
yes,
not to just add my 2 cents politically, but you know what?
Yes.
I'm not bleeding at all. My heart's not bleeding for those banks
that not at all.
caused the problem we're now faced with.
Exactly.
So.
No, I don't feel bad for them either. But you know what I mean? They don't have this view of, oh my God, you filed for bankruptcy. It's like, yeah, everybody's filing, and so they know that. So they're not looking at you like you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
So if it's really that bad and you're drowning, go have that conversation with the bankruptcy attorney.
No, that's great advice. So if somebody wanted to, you know, consult you or find out more about the workshops you're doing and stuff like that, how would they reach you?
Well, one way is to go up to the website. The company name is Financially Fierce, and that's the website, www.financiallyfierce.com.
Okay.
Or they could call in to the company. The number for the office is 202-505-1051. So financiallyfierce.com or 202-505-1051.
And the workshops are here in Maryland, right?
Yes, the live ones, yes. I'm hoping to eventually, as they say, take them on the road.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, I've had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So thank you for tuning in to Making It Last. If you have any show ideas or would like to be a guest on one of the upcoming segments, please feel free to contact me at genxmarty@gmail.com. See you next week.